Welcome back to the Vibe Flow podcast. So we're gonna continue with the topic of feeling good in your body as a woman. And today we're really gonna discuss your beliefs, your limitations around how much goodness and joy you can actually experience. And this is a continuation from episode 1 on Juicy Womanhood. So if you haven't checked out the first episode, go ahead and listen to that first, okay? And in that episode, we talked about why it's necessary for you to reprogram yourself, to repattern your nervous system. And the word nervous system, or that term, is really key here, right? Because if you are so used to having a jacked up, over the top, active nervous system because of being in this fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response at all times, it is really hard to feel good or to feel pleasure, to feel like you are actually enjoying your womanhood, being a woman, right? And there are so many things that we could talk about here that we cannot go into, right? Because, for example, sexual trauma is a huge factor why so many women don't feel good in their bodies, why they don't feel safe in their bodies, and why they secretly or not so secretly hate their female bodies. And that's absolutely devastating. But the truth and the fortunate truth is that we can heal, okay? It is possible to heal, and that's where we're going to start off with. So I really want you to think about, what are your beliefs around feeling good? Like, if you're listening to this, chances are that you just desire to feel good more often. Like, your day-to-day life is now perhaps riddled with stress and anxiety, or there's tension, there might be pain present. If you're anything like me, I have a past, in my past, I had chronic pain in my upper body for years, and it took a lot of learning, a lot of unlearning also of those old patterns for me to heal. And it was a journey, and it is a journey. It's a continuation, it's a devotion. So when we're thinking about our beliefs, we have to ask ourselves, is it possible? Like, do I actually believe that I can feel good? And with this, and I've asked this before on this podcast, to stretch your beliefs around this, just stretch your mind a little bit, and to ask you, do you think or do you believe that it's only possible to feel good, right? That it's only possible to feel good, let's say 30% of the time of your day. And the rest of it, it's just like meh, or it's tense, or it's tight, or it's painful. Like, really ask yourself that. Is it almost like something that is too good to be true to feel good in your body, to have more joy, to have more pleasure, which you have a capacity for? No matter what your past is, no matter your trauma, no matter your experiences, no matter how your nervous system and your body is used to operating, even if it's been for decades this way, you have the capacity to feel more joy, more pleasure, more often. So when I was asked this, it really stretched me to think, okay, well, how much goodness am I actually allowing in? How good am I willing to let it get? Because let's face it, the pain is often a protective mechanism. It is something that we hold on to. Whether it's just like, we might talk about real, like, physical, acute pain or chronic pain, or just something like anxiety, this slight sensation of everything's not right, being worried, being anxious, being fretful, entertaining negative thoughts most of the day. And we think that that's the norm because we're so used to it, right? We're so used to feeling bad. And it's so interesting. We don't even question this. We're just walking around and feeling like, yeah, this is the norm. And anything more than this, like more goodness than this, it's not plausible. Why do we think that is so? And I've heard wise women point out that if you had a headache 70% of the time, you would do something about it. You would seek answers, you would seek remedies until you find them. Because it's crazy to live with a headache 70% of the time. But then with anxiety, with not feeling good with your body, like in your body, not feeling like you love your womanhood, not having the relationship and the marriage that is actually what you want and that feels good and is thriving, and the life that you want, and those dreams and desires that you have that God has placed in your heart, you're like, yeah, I can do with 30%. That's enough for me. Why do you think that? Where does that limitation come from? And the thing here is to accept that only you can stand in the way of feeling good. Only you stand in the way of feeling good. Okay? If there's no practice, there's no healing that you are devoted to, a lifestyle that is more wholesome that you're devoted to, then there are no results. Okay? It's not listening to podcasts and consuming tons of information. And I said this in the last episode, that we have tons of head knowledge and not a lot of integration. That's why nothing changes. Right? So obviously, we want to be cultivating feminine energy. You're here because you are interested and you are sort of woken up to this beautiful, beautiful essence within, your true essence, your power, which is being feminine, not trying to emulate masculinity, but having a relationship with it, whether it's with men or with structure, with frame, with boundaries, whatever it is, with God. And so it starts with repatterning your nervous system, getting back into your body, not being a floating head all the time. Okay. So let's talk about your origin story, your conditioning again, because it's so important here to understand. And the ladies that I talk to, they very often have a background in the church, and these are ladies of faith and who love God, but have also experienced a lot of issues around the dogmatism and the religiousness or religiosity of human-made constriction around faith, right? So let's say you were taught that your body is bad, it needs to be covered at all times. Perhaps you had an experience when you were a kid in which you took the message that your body is bad. Most of my clients, in fact, all of my clients, share this experience. Most of the women in my sphere share this experience. They've had these pivotal moments in their childhood, in their teenagehood, and even in their adulthood, where the message that they took from the situation where they weren't able to properly process what's happening is that their body is bad, that their sensations are bad, and something needs to be covered, something needs to be suppressed, right? And that makes us go into these fight or flight, freeze or fawn responses, people pleasing, suppressing and repressing, right? And you can't heal something that you don't allow yourself to feel, right? If you want to heal anything, you need to allow yourself to feel it and to go through, for example, a stress response which we often sort of cut in the middle and suppress. And so the sensation and the energy is stuck in our bodies. But when we learn to complete that sort of cycle that needs to happen, that is normal, that is natural, that happens with humans and with animals as well, then we can move forward without the baggage. Okay. And notice also that so many women, and I'm going to ask you this, do you have these sort of self-punishment loops that you're trying to keep yourself safe with? Do you notice yourself sabotaging your own mood whenever you can, when you are starting to hit that new level of joy, new level of abundance, new level of feeling good, feeling safe? And these sort of self-punishment loops, that I call them, are so common, again, with the women that I talk to. It's something that I needed to work on, and I'm still working on with myself, because sometimes the message, again, that you've gotten from your childhood, with whether it's people that in your life didn't know what they were talking about or didn't have complete understanding, or you just with your child's mind took away this message, whether it was the intent or not, is that you need to punish yourself in order for you to be good, for you to be a good girl, for you to be accepted. You need to punish yourself in some way so that you don't get proud, or you don't, think of yourself too highly. And it's actually really damaging. And it's not the life that we're called to live, even from the perspective of faith. Right? So think about how, in what ways am I punishing myself or sabotaging myself when I'm moving forward, or when I want to accept that more is available to me, but then I hold back. So it's about releasing the old story. And this is exactly what we do with my clients. And every time a client allows herself to feel what she didn't allow herself to feel, let's say as an 8-year-old, and allows herself to go through that cycle, to feel what she felt, and to release that old story, and to really set in a new story around what happened and what is possible for her and what is available to her, things start to shift. This is exactly what I can help you with, is getting back home to yourself, to your womanhood, and to feel good in your body. All right. So it's all about that repatterning of your nervous system. So you want to start your mornings with something pleasurable, a practice, a devotion that over time will help you really reap those benefits of what it's like to love being a woman. Okay? So you want to start the morning with getting into the body and not going into these automatic loops of doing, and getting stuff done, thinking about work first thing in the morning. If you have kids, it may be that you first thing you need to help them, feed them, get them on their way, or whatever the case may be. But find a time in your mornings where you can devote at least 10 minutes to repatterning yourself, your brain, your nervous system, and getting into pleasure, something pleasurable, right? Getting into your body. So you can, again, use my free audio activations for this that are available if you join my email list. The link is in the description. Those are great. Or anything that helps you start the day with a completely different note, so that you don't start the day with activating your cortisol, your stress hormone that we talked about in the first episode, which is something that we're addicted to. But imagine if you start your mornings with like getting hyped up and getting really anxious and going into these cycles in your mind that just pump up the cortisol into your body. It's not a great way to start. It's not a great way to start your life. And it's important because then this is the results that, or this means that the results that you get overall in your life are determined by the habits that you have and cultivate. Or you can do dance meditations. I absolutely love dance meditations. So there are tutorials on YouTube. You can check those out, or just put on some music, get into your body, express your emotions. Ask yourself, okay, is there something that's bothering me, something that's holding me back? And can I release it? Can I shake? Can I do something? Can I scream into a pillow? Can I write these things down, just, brain dump on a paper and allow it to be, so that it's not this mess inside your head? Okay. You want to infuse your senses with beauty. You want to infuse your senses with something that brings you pleasure. Like, I savor my morning cup of raw cacao with collagen and milk. That's just like something I savor, and I have that time to meditate, to pray. And then I'll probably do a workout, a Pilates or something like that. Or I'll do a dance meditation. I'll be in my body, okay, before I do anything else. And sometimes I don't have the time in the morning, then I'll do it later, but I will prioritize the first moment of every day. I will not go to the phone. I will not scroll. I will not go into these places that activate cortisol, that activate that, the story of lack, the story of pain, the story of limitations, all of that. Because it's not what I want to base my life on. So it's very important that you start to cultivate these practices. And again, I said this in the beginning: no practice, no devotion, no results. Okay. So I want you to know that you can prioritize pleasure. And I've been reminding myself of this of late because, like I said, I noticed that during this pregnancy, there have been so many like logistical things, so many even like things that I'm afraid of, that I'm faced with my fears and all these changes in my body, all the, demands of life, of income, of all of these things. Supporting my husband, who is a total provider and a protector, standing in his masculine, but I'm there to support him, right, in so many ways. And I'm going through this huge change in myself, in my body, in my life also. And I noticed that pleasure totally took a backseat. And I know that becoming a mother is the time when often pleasure takes a backseat. It totally does, right? You're in this new season, and if you have kids, it feels like there's always something to do. But you have to remember that when you fill your cup, when your cup is full, you are so much more able to be in higher service. And also, what I'm taking away, what I am wanting to remember and remind myself of in this new season of my life, is that what I prioritize is also what I'm going to exemplify and show to my kids. Let's say I have a daughter in the future, and I can say all the things I want about what she's worthy of, that she is worthy of being and standing tall in her femininity, and that she's worthy of feeling good in her skin, that she's beautiful, that she is all these things. But if I don't show it to her in my own life, in my priorities, and what I actually do, not just what I say, then that's not the message that she's going to take from this. The message that she would take from it is that, yeah, there's this beautiful ideal that she talks about, but honestly, you sacrifice everything. You sacrifice yourself. And I'm not talking about never sacrificing something. I think love does ask us to sacrifice, but it's very intentional. It's something that we're called to do, but it's not a continual altruism, resentful self-sacrificing that actually creates generational patterns of lack, of limitation, of pain. There's a difference, okay? And it's quite an important one. So I need to remind myself that prioritizing pleasure, even with these small things, can create so much more energy for me to be more, for me to create more, for me to be the best version of myself. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what serves everyone best? So it's not about putting everything on hold, but it is about the devotion, the small windows of time that you are intentional about, whether you feel like doing something or not. So yes, there might be self-discipline that we need to cultivate as well. Right. So my love, you are worthy of feeling good. You are worthy of pleasure. You are worthy of investing time and effort and money into your well-being. I've shared this before that when I was on this discovery call with the coach that I worked with some years back, when I was still deeply in my healing journey, in my second round of healing journey from chronic pain, I broke down in tears during that call because I realized that even though I've been doing all the things and trying to seek answers on how to heal and how to feel good again and not feel pain all the time, I still didn't believe that I was worthy of investing in myself. I didn't think, I held on to this belief that I wasn't worthy of investing that in that program that I was called to start. I was really called to start that program for whatever reason, and fear wanted to stop me from doing it, and also the realization that, yeah, I don't think that I'm worthy of it. And it was a stretch. I needed to make some plans. I needed to think about it, how to make it work. But, once I allowed myself the permission to invest in myself, to actually step out of my comfort zone in a big way, and just trust that things will work out because I am prioritizing myself finally. And it did. It just shifted so many things. Even that decision alone started to shift things in my life. And so this is something that I want you to take away from this. You are worthy of feeling good. If you don't believe that there's lots of layers that you might want to work through, journal on, or work with me so that we can work on those things together. I've been there. I know what it's like. It can feel daunting, but it is so worth it. So worth it. Because you don't want head knowledge. You want the embodiment of feeling juicy in your womanhood. Embodiment is feeling in your body that it is the truth. That is, there's no cognitive dissonance there, that your head is saying one thing And your body is like, I don't even know what she's talking about. Your nervous system is like, what the heck? We know anxiety. We know chronic tension. That's what we're going to create, right? So that's the road that we're on as feminine women, to embody who we want to be, to embody the vibrancy, the juiciness, the joy, the luscious quality of being a woman. But so that these are not just words, we need to step out of our limitations and not fight for them. Sometimes I really need to ask myself, how am I fighting for my limitations? It's not possible. There's no way. I've always felt like this. Everyone in my family feels like this. Who am I to do this? Like all these things, all these loops in our head that are not helping us. How are you fighting for your limitations? And also, ask yourself, are you holding on to your pain with two hands? Are you always parading the misery that you've experienced? Always relating and going back to the pain, the things that people did to you, the things that you couldn't control. Always the victim. I am not here to downplay your pain or deny it in any way, but it is not in your favor to parade and fight for your limitations, to fight for your pain so that you can stay in that comfort zone of misery, of feeling just, kind of okay, but not really. Feeling like, I don't think it's possible for me to feel good in my body. I don't feel it's possible to be confident in my body. Stop fighting for your limitations. You have to stop if you want to experience changes. Otherwise, you're going to stay stuck. That's just how it is. It's the hard truth. I've had to face that in many ways. I still have to. Whenever it crops up, whenever I notice myself getting into that victim mentality, we have to renounce it immediately if we want to step into queenhood. You cannot fight for your limitations if you want to experience more. You gotta ask yourself better questions. How could this be possible? Even that shift alone creates a different reaction in your brain. Different things start to turn, and it's like the cogs are turning in your head differently. How could this be possible for me? Not, this isn't possible for me. Oh, she's just privileged in so many ways. But for me, if you knew my story, ask yourself empowering questions, not questions that put you down. So you need to have that self-awareness there, to ask yourself about your beliefs. Are you self-punishing? Is that your go-to mode of being? Do you believe it's possible to feel good more than 50% of the time? More than 80% of the time? Most of the time? I am not denying the emotions that we get to feel on a day-to-day basis. We experience it all. That's the feminine. We have a huge range. But living in misery certainly is not your calling. So these are the things that I want to leave you with, in the hopes that you could see and be convinced and convicted in your heart that you are worthy of feeling good, that you are worthy of shining that light that God has placed in you, and that your natural sensuality and your natural capacity for joy and pleasure that you get to cultivate and train is already yours. And it's your task, your job to embrace it. To be like, yes, heck yes, I am totally worth this. And see how that changes things. How are you cultivating feminine energy in your life? Are you slowing down? Are you getting into your body? Are you savoring the moment? So with these, we'll end this episode. And until next time, stay in the vibrant flow.